Hi, everyone. I hope you're doing well. Today, I'm going to talk about some things that came up for me this week, which through my stories, and you guys hopefully know this by now, I'm just trying to reflect to you that all of these things happen to all of us. And by speaking them out loud, I feel like it normalizes the situation. And also when it's coming up in your life, instead of the resist, and even in my life, we move forward with grace and move through the portals that our higher beings are trying to get us, like bringing us on the path towards. And then we have that moment where we have a choice. Are we going to step through it, or are we going to pull back and wait another cycle or another circle of the year? So for me, one of my biggest fears came up in the last few weeks. And oh man, I want to just talk about fear. It is literally the number one thing that has the stickinesses of energies to keep you from moving closer to the light. And even though I say that, I still have them, and I still have to work through them. And, for me, it's easy to say, I don't have to deal with shadow work, meaning from my childhood, because I don't have a childhood of remembrance. But I do still have to work through the things that this vessel is holding on to for dear life. And by that, I mean the lessons and the reasons that these ingrained imprints are so deeply intertwined with the energy of my DNA, they have to express. And so the way it looks up for me is that I have a lot of fear, not about what's happening in the world, but fear. It all stems back to probably fear of being seen, which I mean, you're seeing me from the other side of this veil, and you're probably like, what? How is that possible? But I have had to work every step or every circle of my own existence. And by a circle, I mean the wheel. Every year I go around this wheel, and every year that fear keeps getting prodded deeper and deeper. And I guess when we started this whole path of ascension, it was a podcast, and then it was a YouTube, and opening up my heart more, starting an energy circle. All of these things are leading me higher in my own ascension, but I noticed that it's the same thread of fear. And what it boils down to is that fear is, of being seen, but also opening up my heart and intertwining with others. If you listen to this, I don't have guests on. It's not because I don't like people. I've said it's because people do interviews better than I would. But if I really open up my heart and feel into why, it's because I feel like there's fear. There's this fear of unknown. And also I had this feeling that when I'm going to call it network, because to me that's the third dimensional word, and that's how my being always looked at it as, from a third dimensional perspective. To me, networking has always felt, and I'm talking from before I even had a career and all of that, it always felt to me like two energies trying to get something from each other. And that's the lowest vibration, let's say, of networking. But from my own experience and my own perspective, I always felt repelled by it, because I felt like I don't want to sell myself, and I don't want to be the portal for someone else to sell themselves through me. And again, I'm saying that's probably the lowest way to look at it, but that's where the fear and the stickiness for me is and has been. So I get emails all the time for people to collaborate or to, be interviewed. And I don't even know what to do with that energy, because I still feel like just this stuckness, this like walking through wet sand, and in the last few weeks, I had a pivotal moment that I didn't realize, but I had to face that head on. Okay, so I'm going to tell you the story of how it unfolded. As you guys know, last week, I shared all these downloads that came through about human design and how to explain someone's own ascension. Well, it coincided with a reading that I was having with someone that I respect. And when I had that kind of, like, I didn't know why I was having the reading with her, but the night before the reading, I got a message that was like, you're going to offer this to her. And oh my God, every part of my being was like, absolutely not. I do not offer myself up to, number one, people I don't really know. But number two, this is why it was even more scary, is someone that is as connected as I had the feeling that she was. And so I started this negotiation process with myself. I was like, how about this? If she actually sees me, then I'll be brave enough to share what you want me to share. And if not, then I'm not going to. Like, that was the conversation that I had with my own being. And within 5 minutes of that reading, I knew she saw me. Like, there was no way around it. And there was no like wiggle room for me to be like, or chicken out. I could not chicken out. That's how I would call it. So as the reading goes on, I'm just like, I write it down on my piece of paper because I don't want to like forget, because I'm caught up in listening to her. But all the while, I feel like the tension building, and I know it's coming and I have to get it out. And I'm like, okay, at the end of the reading, I said, there is something that I have to ask you, and I just want you to know. I said, because I didn't know how else to phrase it, but I went through this whole expression of how uncomfortable I felt even asking, and which it's so cringeworthy because the reading was recorded. So it's just like nails on a chalkboard of me being like, okay, I got this message that I'm supposed to share this with you. And it really is uncomfortable for me to do that because I don't do that. I don't sell myself. I don't know how to sell myself, and I don't like that feeling. So she's like listening to me, and I just explained that I just received all this downloaded information, and for some reason they want me to share it with you. And she's like, okay, yeah, sure. What do you need? So I asked, for her birth information, and she was like, 100%. Yes. Sounds great. Okay. So then I get her information and I start tuning into her ascension journey. Now, the difference though with her is she's already embodied. So when I talked about the different levels of ascension, I would say the majority of people on this path of ascension are in their sidereal body. They are in their fourth dimensional experience. She is the only other person that I've met to date that is embodied her monad expression, which is fifth dimension. And it was, instead of me looking at it as a progression of her energy, I almost had to go backwards to go forwards to say, like, this is where you're going. And it made me like, can I really do this? Can I? I don't even know her. And here I am offering something that I haven't had a practice of doing this before. I had only seen third, fourth, fifth in this progression. On top of that, I was like, you've put yourself like on the line, and this girl is going to know if you've got the goods or not. Like, she's going to see right through if there's any doubt, or if you believe in something so deeply, but yet it doesn't resonate. You're going to know that. So I like, okay, as you can see, I can get worked up about this. But I then I did her ascension report and I tuned into it. And then I just waited. I was like, I don't know that it's time. And I just kept kind of dragging my feet on actually inviting her and setting up the session. So I waited like 3 weeks. And then I was like, God, I just have to do it. I just have to text her. Maybe she won't even remember, like who knows what's going on in her life or whatever. I'm telling myself these stories. So I texted her and I said, hey, I have your report to send you. And whenever you have free time, I'm ready to do the session. And within like a second, she replies and she's like, oh, this is so perfect. My birthday's next week. I have some time set aside. Let's do this. Like, it was like, okay, I don't have a choice. It's coming. And it happened on Valentine's Day. So this week. And my goodness, you guys, because I knew what day it was coming leading up to it, I just felt like this, like being on the verge of explosion, because I was trying to explain it to Richard like this. It would be like you taking a huge final exam in a surgery or something, and your mentor is watching you do it. Like, to me, I don't come across many people that are living 100% in their bodies. So that's how it felt. And it's not like I'm idolizing her. I just know she can see beyond our normal senses. So to me, I was like, okay, this is it. This is like my big final exam. And all the while too, I was wondering, are they telling me to do this and to offer this to her because they want me to be like networking and putting myself out there more, right? So that was kind of in the back of my mind going into this, because never did I think she actually needs this reading, because obviously she's already in her body. But as the time got closer, I just was like, fuck, I just got to do it. Like, now I have no choice. I have to do it. I've put myself out there. I can't pull back. I have to jump. And so the day comes, and God, starting the session, I shared from my heart where I was and why I had this anxiety. Because to me, in the very beginning, with anything that we do that scares the shit out of us, like, the more vulnerable that you can be, the more relatable I feel that you are. And to me, I didn't know what was going to happen with this. And, I had gotten a bunch of downloads about her and what to share, but so she's like, okay. So she goes, are you wanting me to like tell you if it feels right or give you pointers? I was like, no, I know what I'm doing is right, obviously, because it didn't come from me. I just want you to know that me as a person, I've never experienced a reading with someone that can come back to me and be like, no, hey, this isn't aligned. Or, for example, when I am spewing out downloads, even in the circle, no one ever raises their hand and says, hey, you got that wrong. So I've never been in a situation or around people who push back on what comes through me. So that's where I think this tension was, she has the potential to be able to do that. Like, she can actually see too. So, so I just was like, that's what I think this is about. And I don't know. So let's just go. Let's just see what happens. And so we went into it. And because, again, I had to go backwards to her third dimensional self and then explain what happened as a child, then moving into her awakening and then her embodiment. It was like going back in time to then go forward in time. And I just shared where I saw her as a child, what I felt because a lot of, for me, my messages come and how my body reacts. And so I shared all of that. And I shared what happened as she went through her opening, and that how long it took and how, it made me feel. And then also through that, words showing her in her blueprints how and why things were the way they were as she moved, and also going into her fifth dimensional self of why things are now the way they are and how she is going to progress as she moves forward. And I talk straight for an hour, and I think she had herself on mute most of the time, because she didn't give me oh yeah, that makes sense or nothing. I had no feedback. And then I was like, okay, I think I'm complete. And then she came off mute, which I didn't know she was on mute, but she took herself off mute. And she's like, wow. She's like, that was a lot of information. And human design with someone that doesn't understand it is intense. Like, I always tell people, please record me, because I will just go. And it's a lot of information, especially doing 3 charts in one reading. It's like all over the place. It's a lot of information. But she said that everything that I picked up on was true. Everything that I saw in the childhood and how she moved through her own experience as a child to then move into her adolescence, which she's been on her ascension path way longer than me. She was like, yeah, all of it, 100%. And then we started like now talking about where she's going, and she started asking questions and stuff. And I was giving her again what I was feeling. And again, it was something that is already something that she's put into the ethers, into motion, or into her trajectory. I was already picking up on it and reflecting it back to her. And then I realized all of a sudden, this is why I'm even talking about this. This whole time I had been making this whole networking experience, if we look at it in the lowest frequency, as I'm trying to ask her for something, get some validation from her. Is it because I'm trying to get like her to put me on her podcast? Is it because I want her validation as a reader? What is it? I always looked at it from my perspective of, I'm obviously trying to sell something. And in that moment, I realized, no, that wasn't the whole point at all. The whole thing, that was my ego working through me to show me the lowest vibration of what was happening. But what was really happening is, in the reading that she did for me, she saw me. She saw me. And it's the first time I've ever had that. And the reason that they told me I needed to give this to her is she also needed to be seen, and like by someone that doesn't know her, just here, holding up a mirror to someone and saying, this is who you are, and this is what I see you projecting. And then I realized, like, duh, it landed on her birthday. Like, you can't make it up. It all is exactly how it's supposed to be. And all I was doing was like making it about me and my fear about it. So what I finally understood in this whole exchange was that, yes, I was working through my own issues with networking. But at the end of the day, I was just also being used as a vessel to reflect to someone that had given me such a beautiful gift. And so what I realized is that at the end of the day, all of our fears are holding a low vibration for sure. And you can see in my story of mine, it was all about me and all about like this icky feeling I felt, like all about like if I'm trying to get something or someone's trying to get something from me. And at the end of the day, all it is this meshing and beautiful like musical that comes together for you to have no idea what's happening in another soul when you have those interactions and when you create this movement of energy between the two of you. And I realized I was holding the lowest vibration of what networking is. And I don't think that I ever would have been able to move beyond that view of myself until I was face to face with such a high frequency being for me to see like, oh, this doesn't have to feel icky. This doesn't have to feel like people using each other. And I know, again, lowest vibration, because I don't think people are using each other when they network, but I always felt that. And it made me see like, again, when she saw me in my reading, I felt safer to come down and express myself. And in a way, this was the next iteration of that is not only is it safe to come down, but it's safe to share your heart and open yourself, even if you're nervous about it, even if it triggers everything in you. That's the only way to open the portal to your next timeline or your next evolution of yourself. And ultimately, we're here to keep evolving and moving it forward so that we can ascend. But you can't do that if you're holding these lower frequencies. I mean, essentially, the whole system would be ripping in half. Like, you want to move as a whole embodied vessel. You can't just leave those those bad parts or those parts that are sticky to the side. I have to bring light to the darkest parts of me. And I just feel like so much gratitude for this learning. And in that, I started to realize too that all of the times that I have opened up myself, let's say for a circle or an interaction, even a reading with someone, I always have this feeling like I have to open up and hold a certain frequency so that that person can meet me there, right? And in that it feels like a responsibility, even though it's a self-imposed responsibility. It feels like an energetic, like, okay, I have to be in the highest vibration to allow what is meant to come to the surface to come up. And what I realized is that by me believing that I have to be that space, that, let's say, sphere of light, I'm not allowing other people to hold and mirror it back to me in a way. Like, people can meet me there and I can see them in there and I can play with them in there, but I'm always feeling like I'm the one holding. And something that I realized this week too is that that's not the case. We have to allow ourselves to settle down for another person's energy to blow up and hold. And then you can feel into their portal. And essentially, this feels like a big evolution of even the energy circle. Something that I was also shown is that one of my biggest purposes here at this time is to allow like a safe space for others to grow their own sphere and to feel safe in opening it up, like almost like a blossoming into a like-minded group of people to be seen. Because the thing is not everyone's here to have a podcast or a YouTube channel, but if you don't start allowing that expression of yourself to embody into this vessel and speak out and manifest through, like, allow the energy to move through in a, how do I say this, in an energetic field where others are able to mirror back to you and vice versa, the energy is stagnant. You can't invite and change, and you can't evolve. Or you can, but it's going to be very slow. So what I felt in this exchange with her is that she, without even knowing, accelerated my own openness into my own heart portal to see my flaws or the things that I was holding on tight to that I can now put down. And if you don't have a space to, like, let's say, for example, you are a tarot card reader. Let's just use that as an example. And you do it at home by yourself and you pull tarot and you ask advice and all of that, but you keep it self-contained in your own sphere. You're not sharing that gift with the world. And what that means is that the world can't reflect it back to you. You're just keeping it in your own ritualistic space that can't amplify. So what it felt like is that the energy circle needs to be a space to allow reflection and amplification of whatever that person wants to play with. And I feel like it's play. It's not even like, this is my purpose here, because we get so like hung up on, this is what I'm here to do. Like, even though all those downloads came through me about this human design ascension, I know that's only a fraction, and I would say a tiny fraction of what I'm here to do. But it is something that wanted to work through me, so I acknowledge it, and then I amplify it by spreading it and sharing it, right? What if I got all those downloads and I kept it in my own sphere? What does that do? It's energy that doesn't move. So in your own ascension, whatever you're playing with, and again, whatever modality that is, talking about it, sharing it, practicing it, all of it matters. And just like this week for me, having a peer to play with, it felt like boom, 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 boom. And it helped me to see myself in a new way. So I hope that you guys understand that this whole game is about the fears. It is, I mean, like, for me, it's fear. Other people can be like, I don't even know what another low dimensional word would be. But let's just use the word fear. They are just points that have an acceleration that's waiting for you. Now, again, I could have said absolutely not to myself. I am not offering this. I'm not going through this. I'm not going to put myself through this, because that would have been the safe thing. Everything that is not safe is where our growth is. So I hope that that's helpful. I also just want you guys to know, I don't think that the process ever stops. I mean, even bouncing off with her, dude, she's embodied too. And she's still like, moving up and down and having to expand her reach and then like pull back and be like, okay, well, how? And then magically all these new people come in and they help to create the path to move it forward. And it's like, the more, density that we release, the more that release creates a vacuum that then attracts new people, new things, new ideas, new collaborations in, because you've like released something to let room for something new, and it has room to grow and breathe, and it's like a pulse. And it's like, okay, now when you're used to that, let's drop some more and expand some more. And it's like over and over and over. And I do not think that it ever ends. So wherever you are on your journey, start the process. Go into the fears. That is where all growth is.